What's up again there, guys? Brian here at 3 Chapter. Welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that you guys have sent me over the past week. Sadly, we got a much shorter set of questions this time around, which will, obviously present a much shorter episode. But I just want to give you guys a quick warning. If you actually did send in a question that you don't hear in this video, be sure to check the comment section of the last video, because chances are I ran into a lot of questions that were simply one-word responses. So if you send a question that requires me to go into a little bit more detail, chances are it'll have a better chance of being answered. I mean that's not every other time, because sometimes I'll get a good one that has like a yes or no answer, but just a number of questions were like that, so I just decided just to answer them in the comment section and then just answer these questions, which require me to talk a little bit more about them to go in depth. So starting off real simple with the first questions coming from the Hunter Bros, and you both first want to know, what weapon would I design for Virgil / Dante, or any character I would really want to design a weapon? Well, after what I saw in God of War, I probably would have wanted to make a weapon for Kratos. I mean, the weapon can be upgraded, but I would have found a way to upgrade his axe so that it was kind of like a classic Vikings axe, so it had like equal sized blades on both ends, because obviously there's like a big end and a smaller end, and the axe does get bigger with upgrades, but at some point at the end I would have had it so that it's like two big blades on both sides. And I think that's the kind of weapon I would probably want to design for Chris, because he really knows how to use an axe. And in some fights that I was encountering, the axe was definitely a little bit more effective than the classic Blades of Chaos. So that's the kind of weapon I would probably want to make. Then the second question is, do I think that PlayStation All-Stars gets too much hate? This is going to be a shock. I was not aware that people hated PlayStation All-Star. I really enjoyed that game. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much a kind of a watered down clone version of Super Smash Brothers, but the thing about PlayStation is the only other console brand outside of Nintendo that could actually pull something like this off. I mean, you damn sure couldn't do this with Microsoft. PlayStation actually has the library of characters to put them in this type of brawler type game. I mean, my only complaint is that they add a couple characters, including Bob, in the game that I just didn't think were necessary. I mean, if you're going to make a title like that, I think it should have just been strictly exclusive characters. Had that game come out now, I think we certainly would have had more characters that we could have used, but I genuinely enjoyed it and had a lot of fun with on both PlayStation 3 and on the Vita. Next question comes from the All-Star Gamer Punk, and you want to know, since the perfect devil trigger takes away your humanity the more you use it, do I think that Virgil would use it to gain more power? Probably. He actually does use his devil trigger a lot more than Dante, and we know that for a fact. I mean, we know he doesn't like humans, and you didn't mention that he has his love for his mother, but I think that's something he would kind of push through, because his pursuit of power, because the demon side of him would eventually take control, and he generally wants more power, so he embraces his darker aspects of his personality, and that's probably why Dante doesn't use his devil trigger or his demon powers that much, which makes sense for him. He wants to make himself as strong as possible in his base form. Virgil is willing to do anything to gain more power, so I absolutely think he would do it as often as he could. Next question comes from Josh McCoy, and you want to know, do I think that Raiden from Metal Gear Rising could hold his own against the main cast of Final Fantasy VII? At once, if he took them all at one time, probably no. If he took them on one at a time, I think he'd definitely beat, okay, he would beat Barrett, he would beat Yuffie, he would beat Tifa, he would beat Aerith, he would beat Katsif, Vincent he might have some problems with, Cloud he might have some problems with, but I think he could probably beat them too. And Red 13, yeah, he probably beat most of them one-on-one, but as a team I think they could take him down. Next question comes from YODA Date, and you want to know, what Jedi lightsaber form would Scorpion use? Someone actually answered your question in the comment section, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. The form I absolutely think you would probably use is, the thing about Juyo is, you can't just study Juyo. In order to even begin to study Form 7 Juyo, you have to be a master of multiple forms below, because Juyo is not a universal fighting form. It's built off of different components. So, say, Sidious' Juyo is different from Maul's Juyo, and there's different variations of it depending on the core elements that you were first trained under. So he couldn't just study Juyo. And Juyo is different from what Mace Windu did. Mace Windu does not use Juyo, he uses Vapat, which is a perfected version of it. Which kind of has, like, it keeps all the positive and removes the negative. There's a big difference between the two forms. But I would say that if he learned a couple of the previous forms, most specifically, I think he would probably use Form 1 and Form 5. And maybe dabble in a little bit of 6. If he matched those forms, then he could definitely go into Juyo. But yeah, he would need to know a couple of, or a couple of few more forms before even practicing Juyo. He's got the emotional part down, but you need the skill set. Next question comes from SERNA. And you want to know, what materia would I want and why? I would want the Ultima Materia, and that is because it is the most powerful spell in Final Fantasy. You trust me, you hit Sephiroth like 5 or 6 times with that thing and he will go down every single time. Next question comes from the Black Lady, and you want to know, what is the hardest final boss that I've ever faced and how long did it take me to beat him? You know, I was thinking about kind of converting this question into like not so much a single boss, but like a single game level, but if I could just stick to bosses, probably the one that sticks out the most to me is probably, I want to say, Kingdom Hearts 1 Sephiroth. And the reason for that is because the difference that I've always seen between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 is that the gameplay is so much slower. And for me, it was a matter of trying to beat Sephiroth and just leveling myself up. Like, I literally never was able to beat Sephiroth before literally getting the ultimate weapon, like all the best gear, and being maximum level 100. Anytime below that, I would have trouble. So it took several tries to do it because you have to get used to his patterns, but ultimately it took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of level grinding to get Sora and my party to its maximum before I eventually took him out. With Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 2, I think he's a little bit harder, but I was able to beat him a lot sooner than needing to max up my character. Next question comes from Venom Rules All, awesome name, and you want to know, is there any chance that Revis from Final Fantasy 15 can be used in a Versus video? I'm not going to say no, but he's not really a character I was all that interested in. I think I could certainly get the facts I would need to use him in a Versus matchup, but then the question is, who would I put him up against? Who would be a suitable opponent? Who's an opponent who kind of fills a similar role that is compatible with him? Or it just would be a good matchup in general. But I'm not going to rule that out as an impossibility. It's just I'm not that interested in the character, and I'm not sure who you would put him up against. Next question comes from Virgil, the son of Sparta, and you want to know, what is the meanest thing that I have done to someone? Meanest thing? Well, let's see. I can't think I've stolen anything. I don't think I punched anyone. Well, I did. Well, I did stab a girl with a pencil in first grade, and I got sent to the principal's office, and that was like the only thing that was ever put on my permanent record. I don't remember why I did it. That was so long ago, but I do distinctly remember stabbing her with it. I don't think it was deep. I mean, she went to the nurse's office, and you know, just that was like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, I skipped a grade. I mean, if kindergarten counts as a grade, but like in general, that's probably the meanest thing I've ever gone out of my way to do to a person. But obviously, I'm a kid at first grade. You're gonna do a lot of dumb things. The next question comes from Marcus RIENIEN. And you want to know, which is my favorite Resident Evil mercenary game, 4, 5, or 6? Definitely 6. 6 by far has my favorite gameplay style, being able to move and fire at the same time, being able to run, being able to jump forward, being able to jump back, being able to roll, being able to be on the ground, slide back, and shoot in multiple directions. So, and also having probably the best collection of playable characters, and being able to play online with a friend. I mean, it just probably is the best mercenary mode that I can think of between those three. And the last question of the episode comes from Silver Shadow 2099, and you want to know, who do I think would win between Exar Kun and Sephiroth? I think I've answered something like this, and it comes down to simply, could Sephiroth contend with the Force? You're throwing a whole set of new rules. I mean, it's materia against the force, and I just feel like materia is a little bit limited because you need a direct source of the life stream. Like, if you were to take Sephiroth, even though he's never needed materia to use magic, I think he needs some sort of connection to some life stream energy. If you were to take him and put him on like another planet, he might have some problems. But with Exar Kun, there's like a lot. He is extremely powerful with alchemy and Sith sorcery, and a lot of those things really affect the mind. And to be fair, Sephiroth's mind is not really the strongest protected. He probably could, I mean, I know he likes to manipulate Cloud all the time, but Exar Kun does the same thing too. So I'm just not really sure if Sephiroth could get around the whole force thing. I mean, blade for blade wise, I think he definitely would stand a good chance. Obviously, Sephiroth would have the range, but Exar Kun just have a saber staff. But I think his style is just, it needs to be absolutely perfect. But he's kind of the person who would put that much work into making sure that his style was perfect, so he didn't make any mistakes or distractions. So I'm gonna lean towards more no, just because I just am not sure if Sephiroth could contend with the force, because that is a very powerful source of power that, in terms of the dark side, Exar Kun was definitely one of the most powerful Sith Lords of his era. I mean, I'm not going to say he was one of the most powerful, but he was definitely one of the most powerful in his entire era, and that's undeniable. So with that, those are all the questions that you guys sent me for this episode. I'd like to thank all of you guys for making this episode possible. If you guys have any more questions you would like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before Wednesday, preferably before noon Wednesday, before I start filming the next episode. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next time.